This, for me, is more than a great pleasure. 1978 to 1980, I was a missionary in Chile, in the Santiago South Mission. And it was there that I gained a great love for this country. And to be able to introduce the ambassador, His Excellency, is truly a pleasure for me. Most of you probably heard a little bit about the ambassador. He has served as Chile's Minister of Defense. That was from 2007 to 2009. He was an ambassador to Mexico, to Italy, to Sweden. He's been a representative on the United Nations Agricultural Organization. He has also served on the United Nations World Food Program. This is a man of tremendous experience worldwide. It's been very interesting for me to look into his life a little bit, thanks to the internet. Con mucho cuidado siempre, ¿no? It was very interesting to find out that he is an avid reader. He is an admirer, according to one interview at least, of Gonzalo Rojas, who was one of our poet in residences here at BYU for many years before returning to Chile. Vicente Huidobro, Nicolás Guillén, and Alejo Carpentier, all great literary figures. If you are not familiar with them, I would suggest you do so. As I was doing this research, I found a quote, and I have loosely translated it, and he can correct me, His Excellency can correct me. But I found this very revealing about him. He said, "I do not believe that there are models that stand at the forefront of the political and social process. There are not models, there are experiences, some of them more successful than others. But they are experiences nonetheless. And it is extraordinarily relevant that each country, each society, develop his model based around its own history, its own culture, and its own particular structural characteristics. Each country, each society has to develop its own identity that aims towards its objective, whether it be political transitions, economic and social development, or all of them. What we have done," and he's talking about Chile, "what we have done comes from the painful experiences coming out of our military government and from our experiences with the previous democratic experiment. But it is evident that what the country has been able to construct afterward has only been possible because of the growth and maturity of those who have participated in the process," what he calls los actores. I thought this was a tremendously relevant point for him to make. This was from 2006 when he was in Mexico. I believe that we will have an amazing opportunity to hear from a man whose experience grows out of a lifetime of serving his country, being interested in the affairs of his country. Now then, for those of you who are not familiar with Chile, can I just ask, how many of you have been in Chile? When I was a missionary there many years ago, a lady tried to get me to understand the beauty of Chile. And this is something that I've only spent a very short time with the ambassador, but I feel this very profoundly. She turned to me and she said, when God created the earth, He took the most beautiful things that there were on this earth and He stuck them in a little corner. And when He had finished creating the world, He called it Chile. He called that beautiful area Chile. And I think that what you'll find from my contact with His Excellency, you're going to feel that beauty, that strength, that warmth that I discovered when I was a missionary, shall I admit, 30 years ago, that has stayed with me and has influenced my life for good. Mr. Ambassador, I turn the time over to you and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you, Pablo. Well, Professor already said the main ideas of my conference, so we can go directly to the questions. Well, I would like to start saying that I'm very delighted to be with you today. It's a very important opportunity for us as ambassadors to came to outside of Washington, and more important is to come to these places that are normally out of our normal work. So I'm very grateful of this invitation, this occasion of having a talk with you. To talk with students in general is something very, very important everywhere. To talk with a student for an ambassador is particularly important. So we can share some experiences. I will be very happy. So I would try to share some ideas with you in my country, and also to draw some conclusions that can be important for other people, for other countries. Because as the professor reminded me, I believe that every country, every people has to go their own experience. They are not models. They are not cases that you can just take from another reality and try to put in your own reality. You are to construct from the base your own experience, based in your own culture, your own traditions. And concerning economic and social processes, this is especially true. Let me tell you firstly where Chile is located. I understood that many of you have been already in Chile, and others are preparing themselves for going to Chile. But my country is located in the very peculiar position in South America, and our position, well, it's a very long country, it's 4,000 kilometers long, with a very long coast to do. And this position and our geographical location permit us to have different climates. We have almost all the climates except the tropical one. But in the north, it's a very dry climate with a very dry desert, where the mining sector is mainly located. So it's very important in our own economy. The center of the country, can I use this glass? Yes. Yeah. And the center of the country is where most of the population live, where the agriculture activities and in some way also forest activities, and mainly the industrial sector is located in this area. And in the south of the country, it is a climate that is very cold, rainy, where we have the forestry sector, and all over our coast we have a very important fishing sector. They are the main productive activities of Chile. For giving you an idea of how long is the country, well, I put it over your map, so you can understand that it's more or less the distance between, well, the east coast and the south or the west coast in the United States. Another way of showing our diversity is putting Chile in the other way around. So this is our north and this is our south. But it gives you an idea about both how long is the country and how diverse the climate in my country are. Well, normally, probably you can read and listen on Chile as a success story from the economic point of view. And I think that is true. Chile has had a very positive economic development during the last 20 years. We have, let me tell you first, almost 17 million inhabitants, with the majority of the population concentrated in the urban areas. Less than 15% of our population is rural. We have an enormous concentration in the big cities, especially in Santiago, in the center of the country, Valparaiso and Concepcion in the south. And it's very important to know that Concepcion is, at least for two that are sitting in this aula, is the most important city in Chile. Well, anyway, this is an information produced by International Monetary Fund, and it shows us the growth of the Chilean economy in the context of the world economies during the period of the last 19 years, 1990 and 2008. And what I tried to show you, that as a matter of fact, we have had as average, with of course difference between different years, as an average a growth around 5.8% per year during this period. That means that we had had a very positive result, and Chile is considered one of the most dynamic economies all over the world. You can see that the Chinese economy has been growing during the same period almost 10% a year. That is fantastic. And all of us hope that the Chinese and mainly Indian economies are going to continue in this very dynamic growth, because they have been acting as the motor of the world economy since already many years. We also hope from a Chilean case to continue with this success. I'm going to show you very quickly just some of these very famous rankings that are published in different parts of the world, in order to give you an idea about this successful case in Chile. When we talk about economic success, we are talking on an economy that has been well managed during all this period. The Chilean economy, as I mentioned, is based in national resources, and they are a very important share of our GDP. But probably the most intelligent thing that I can tell you is that we have success managing an economy in a very wise way. And with way I mean that we understood that we have to maintain the macroeconomic equilibrium in order to work in the long term, and all the sectors will benefit of this growth. That means that we have to keep the balance in the fiscal accounts, and we have to keep the control of the inflation rate that has been very low during the last period, and we have to keep political stability. All these factors, plus solid institutions, serious legal framework are the main economic explanation to the success story of Chile. One specific secret of our own process has been the openness of our economy. Since the 80s, but mainly since the 90s, we have been open the economy, and today probably the Chilean economy is one of the most integrated all over the world. More than 70% of our GDP is a result of the foreign trade, export-import trade. And probably there is no other country that has this kind of rate. And that means, of course, that we are very well integrated to the world economy. And if you're trying to find a positive example where a country have had good consequences of the globalization process, probably the Chilean case is one of the most outstanding one. Well, this success has been observed by many institutions all over the world. So in this slide you can see the risk score ranking. That means certain studies that some institutions are doing every year, where they can to catch the risk that this specific economy means for many other countries or many other investors, or even for foreign trade. As you can see, Chile is one of in the highest position all over the world, after France and over Ireland, even Japan, United Kingdom, and other well-developed countries. Other way of understanding this success is this index, the competitiveness. That is probably one of the most interesting one. This index is trying to show how competitive the country is. Not only the enterprises, but the country as such. And this is a very important concept to understand today in the globalization process, that the competition is not only between enterprises, but is also between countries. In this, especially when you are talking of small or middle sized country like Chile. Probably in the United States case can be a little bit different. But this competitiveness index, we are very well located too. Look at, we are immediately after Ireland, United Kingdom, Belgium, Israel, before France, Czech Republic, even India. That is another very successful story. It's because we have managed very well the economy, very well positive economic performance. We have a business community that's very efficient, as well as the government, and also important investment in the infrastructure that, of course, is always very important. Other institutions that publish a similar index, that we can continue showing the next one. This one is concentrated in the economic freedom, and by economic freedom they mean how the country, how the institution, how the global factors that influence the activities of the private sector, and in this case Chile as well has a very positive rank. We are in this ranking immediately after United Kingdom, Switzerland, and with higher or better economic freedom than Netherlands, Iceland, and well, many other countries. Another aspect that's extremely important today for international business is the corruption perception. And again, this has to do with the culture of each country, how the public sector, but also how the private entrepreneurs deal with corruption. I don't think that we can say that there is no corruption at all in one country or one society. But the point is, how can we control this corruption? How can we put the institution in a way that they can make that the business that you are going to do don't need to have a distortion during the decision process. And well, again, Chile's case is very well evaluated by this kind of institutions. We are immediately after France, United States, Belgium in this case. Well, in general, we are very proud of our economic development. We have done, I think, a good job, and we hope to continue with this line. But what is most important of all is the success that we had fighting the poverty and the indigence. Just less than 20 years ago, the Chilean society had more than 40% of poverty. That means that more than 40% of the Chilean people was according the international standard, considered as poor or indigent people. The last time that we did this study, it was 2006, 3 years ago. It showed that this index has decreased at a level of 13%, more or less. Today, I think that it must be below 10%. It's still, I think, too high. If it's 10% of poverty, I can affirm that we have probably 10% of excess of poor people. But the trend that you can observe is outstanding. And our ambition is to finish with the poverty in Chile in 5, 6, 7 years more. And I think that is possible. Always we are going to have some marginal people in each society. That's true. But what I'm trying to explain is that if the society as a whole can have a responsibility for its members, we must try to do everything in order to help these people to get tools that permit them to go out from their poverty. And this is the main goal that we have been fighting, we have been working with in my country during the last, I should say, 20 years. And this is the most important success. And I think that this is the very unknown success of Chile. Probably you can read more about the economic aspects, but the social consequences are extremely important. Not only because it's a moral and ethic responsibility, but also because if you reduce the poverty, if you show that the democracy produce concrete result for the majority for all the people, that means that you are going to have better democratic institution, you are going to have better democracy. And If you reduce the poverty, you have a better integrated society. If you reduce the poverty, you are going to have people that believe better in their country and their institutions. And this is extremely important, especially when you observe that the main problem all over the world is just poverty. Well, this index was published just 2 days ago from the United Nations that show also this trend that Chile has been increasing the quality of life. And for quality of life, we are talking of all the different aspects that involve your own life and life of your family. Since 1990, Chile has had 4 democratic presidents. We have today, until March next year, President Bachelet, the first woman president of my country. That we are very proud of this woman. I can tell you that yesterday was published a new opinion poll in Chile that showed that our president has the support of 76% of the population. As I said yesterday, probably is a world record of, in all the world. Well, I can back to this with the questions. I would like just to show this slide that show us the different free trade agreements that Chile has signed and they are in implementation today. You can see that we are with all the main it's too dynamic this here. We have free trade agreement with European Union, with the United States, Canada, Mexico, with all South America and Central America, but also with Japan and China and many other countries from Asia. There are 22 free trade agreements that involve 56 countries today. That means over 85% of the world population. This is one of the key that explain from the economic point of view again our success. We opened the economy with a very important cost, of course, very high cost, but at the same time we had the opportunity to compete with companies, with countries in different parts of the world. And this strategy was chosen just because we understood that our own economy is too small for having the growth that we need for going out from the underdevelopment. We want to reach and we want to be a developing country in 5-6 years. And this is possible. This is perfectly possible if we continue in this direction. So probably one of the main conclusions that I can share with you that is possible to finish with poverty, that is possible to eliminate the indigence and to have a better society, a better integrated society. And it's also possible to go out from the underdevelopment and to reach the condition of developing country. For doing that, you need not only economic success. You need economic success, that is always the base for the other success, but you need also social success, and you need to have a democratic system working. In the Chilean case, we suffer a dictatorship during almost 70 years. And probably the most important thing that I can tell you is that we learned the lesson. We understood that the democratic system is extremely important and that the democracy concerns everywhere. You only are aware of the importance of democracy when you lose democracy. When we lose it in 73 through a coup d'etat, we understood the importance of having it. So when we recovered in 1990, we decide to work together, even when we have a lot of differences between left and right and different political parties, and it's good that we have it, and we are going to have it in the next future. But in one or two or three or very basic important things, we have to agree. And that has to do with the importance of democracy, and that has to do with the importance of having a better society, a better integrated society. Well, I would like to stop here and I'm open for your questions. Thank you.
His Excellency has accepted to take some questions. We have one roving mic, so if you'd please stand, raise your hand, and if we call on you, stand, and then tell us your name and what you're studying, and then you can ask your question. Are there any questions at this time?
Okay.
Good afternoon. Oh, excuse me.
No. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. My name is Jonathan Luke. I'm studying history here at BYU, and my main question for you is, what are the ways that the impoverished part of the community, what are the ways they're being integrated into the economic success that you've outlined? What are the ways in which they are increasingly becoming involved in the community and in the success that you've detailed?
Right. Well, it's very difficult to do that because, well, I'm not going to be a philosopher today, but for giving you a very short answer, the best way of helping people go out from poverty is to create jobs. This is the, without that discussion and according to our own experience, the best and the only way. But at the same time, if you only wait for a natural process of the redistribution of the income without any support from social measures, I think that it's going to be impossible to reach all the population. So I think that the combination of economic growth that permit you to create jobs with the social measure that support this growth and permit you to focus the many measures in order to give to the most poor people capacitation, education, better housing, better schools, better health. The ensemble of this measure permit you to help the people to integrate themselves to the society. And it's not easy. Please. Take this.
Sure. I'd rather take that one. Thank you. I'm Daniel Yanes. I'm from Santiago, Chile. I'm studying business management here. My question is kind of similar to the one that was asked. I remember growing up and hearing different forecasts that Chile will become a developed country by 2005, then by the bicentennial of Chile. Now, I don't know, 2015 probably. So Chile has failed to reach that that condition of a developed country according to those former forecasts. What do you think has kept Chile from reaching that state so far? What has been the main obstacle that has kept Chile from achieving that state of development that we want to achieve?
Well, many times my colleagues, economists, write and talk too much. The reality is always more complex than just to write a mathematical model and try to find the truth with this model. No, the reality is always more complex. Many times you receive the impacts of the economic crisis, like this one, for instance, in which you have nothing to do. This present crisis is a typical one that has been created in some specific country, in some specific sector, and that has a ramification for all the economies all over the world. Who could think just 2-3 years ago that we should going through the deepness of this crisis? No one. No one. Well, so these facts are going to happen all the time. When we are working with social and economic processes, it's impossible to predict them to the 100%. But on the other side, what I can affirm is that the progress that the Chilean society has done is amazing. I don't remember exactly, but you can confirm that. But at the beginning of the 90s, the GDP per capita in Chile was not more than $3,000 per capita. Today, the PPP, that's purchasing per capita power, that is the main measure that is used in these figures. For Chile's case is over $14,000. We hope to reach $20,000 in 4 or 5 years, I don't know, 10 years, I don't know. And you can understand that every time that when you have reached some steps in order to reduce the poverty, in order to develop the country, the next step is always more difficult. I tell you, in the poverty case, it's relatively easy to eliminate, when you have 40% of poverty, to go down to 30%. It's still relatively easy to go down to 20%. But then it's more and more difficult, because just the poverty in our countries is located, the most difficult poverty is located in sectors that is more difficult to reach. You have to know where the poor people is living. What are their problems? And you have to identify them almost one by one in order to reach them, for trying to help them. So I try to explain to you that some part of the development process are easier than others. And at the same time, I'm trying to say that what we have done in Chile is really outstanding. I am very, I have a big admiration for the Nordic countries. I think that, or at least of the experience that I know, are the most interesting one concerning the economic, social, and political development. But I'm not sure if any of the Nordic countries have reduced the poverty in the way that Chile has done in just 18, 19 years. So I think that we are in the right direction. Important is to continue working in this direction. But we have a lot of problems. What I tell you is that doesn't mean that Chile has no problem. We have problem. We have problem of being more competitive in the future, and this competitiveness is changing all the time. All the actors are very active, trying to find their own competitiveness in the world market. We need to have a better environment. We need to find new energy sources. We can't continue with this way of life, and I'm talking for all of us, that we have been implementing during our life. We have to change that. We have to be more conscious of that the energy that we use must come from sources that must be renewable. So we need to continue this process in Chile and all over the world. We have also to have better educational system in Chile. We have done a lot, but it's not enough. So we have still many problems that we have to solve. And this is a very interesting challenge for all of us. And I hope that also for all of you. Another question? No.
Hi sir, my name is Hiram Suarez. I'm from Bogota, Colombia. I had the chance to live for a couple of years there in Santiago, Chile, so I could see like all the good things and bad things that you have been talking about. You said that one of the the key points of the success of Chile, it's been the agreements that they have signed with all around the world. Specifically, talking about the free trade with United States, I think if I'm not wrong, Chile was the first Latin American country to sign that agreement. It's been like a couple of years. So, according to your perception, how well has done Chile after that free trade, and also how can the other Latin American countries like do better, because we know like United States like made some mistakes about it, and they give up to a lot of things that Chile wanted. And now with the last trades that United States has been doing or dealing, it's been like more like a hard line process with the other Latin American countries. So it's just like that. Like to be specific, how well has done or how bad has done Chile after the free trade, and how can the other countries can improve and can better like negotiate to don't just give up everything in this trade.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the question, because I can say a couple of things about our free trade agreement. As a matter of fact, we finished the negotiation between the Chilean and American government in 2003, and we have since January 2004 this free trade agreement. A free trade agreement, the main idea is to eliminate the tariff. When you export a product from the United States, for instance, to other economy, normally the export company or export country must pay a tax that we call tariff for introducing this product or this service to the other economy, to the other country. A free trade agreement tries to eliminate. This is the goal of a free trade agreement, eliminate this tariff. And we did it with the United States. We almost have no tariff at all. So we can export from Chile to the United States almost every product without paying specific tariff, and you can export from the United States to Chile in the same way. And the result of this agreement has been extremely positive. We have increased the bilateral trade by more than 300% in 5 years, between 2004 and 2008. And we are very happy with the result. You can see here, this is the level that we had, well, here in January 2004, and this is the level at the end of last year. And has been even more positive for the American export to Chile than the Chilean export to the United States. We had a positive balance always, all the time, until last year, when the American export became more important than the Chilean export to the United States. But this is not the most important thing, to have in this case a negative balance for the Chilean economy, because what is important is a global balance with all over the world. And if we are getting products, services, or well, different kind of import from the United States to Chile that help us in our development, well, it doesn't matter if we have a deficit in some opportunities. So the balance that we have done in this case is very positive, and probably is one of the most dynamic free trade agreements that we have signed. And I think that is the same case from the American economy point of view too. Has also been very positive. So this shows that it's possible for a very small country like mine to have a good free trade agreement with, well, the biggest and most important economy all over the world. I know that Colombia is very interested in having a free trade agreement as Panama, and they have been negotiating during the last years. We have been supporting this negotiation, and probably the best way of doing that is, in one way, explaining this success story for the American Congress, and on the other side, to show that not a free trade agreement is not a problem for the American economy. The American enterprise can win also.
Right.